79-й, правильно я думаю, да? Так что давайте посмотрим сейчас, что получилось при тромбэкстракции.
Мы были нежны с ним.
И уже, наверное, у вас есть какая-то мысль, что делать дальше с этим местом? У меня впечатление, что не очень глубоко стоит гид, коллеги. Немножко подтяните, это не нужно.
Да. Вы знаете, после тромбоэкстракции нам удалось еще фрагмент тромба достать.
Да.
Вот, пожалуйста, посмотрите.
Тоже из Латвии?
Это, наверное, уже
Сколково изготовлено.
Это предыдущий фрагмент, а в корзине новый фрагмент.
Давайте мы посмотрим, сейчас еще раз снимок сделаем, давайте. Посмотрим, что мы имеем.
А третий раз там еще меньше.
Окей. Вот насчет проекции. Да, ну, достаточно неплохая проекция. Единственное, вот как соотношение с диагональной. Покажите нам, показывайте. Хотя неплохо.
Я бы не очень расстраивался, потому что кажется, что подляшка не в той стороне, что там она уже чуть-чуть, там нет.
Вот ваше мнение, доктора, что вы хотите сделать сейчас?
Есть короткая аппроксимация, нельзя чуть-чуть дистантнее диагональной ветви, поэтому хотим напрямую стентировать этот участок.
Вот здесь я согласен, стентировать, потому что это молодой человек, так кажется, что нет карциноза, и здесь я полностью согласен стентировать.
Размер, пожалуйста.
3×15.
3×15. Я бы 3,5 минимум.
Это граница проксимальной и средней.
Ребят, ну посмотрите, у вас гид рядом. И посмотрите, сравните с гидом. Почти 2 гида у вас. А вы берете 3. Это не совсем правильно. Тогда, может быть, мы, может быть, сделаем так. Мы к вам вернемся, когда вы уже все сделаете. Это будет минут через 30. И вернемся в 79-ю больницу. Да? А сейчас мы попросим Синди Грайнс, чтобы она нам представила лекцию, которая нас всех очень интересует.
all these cases, and so I think it's important to go through the data and talk about when it should be performed, whether there's any advantages to the certain devices. So the cause of the thrombus has been known for a number of years, but unfortunately we were a little bit delayed just because the pathologist thought that the thrombus might have been formed after the Florida era. But in the early 1980s, there were some angiographic studies and actually surgical studies that proved that there was thrombus while the patient was still alive. And that's shown here in this slide, one of the pie graphs from the bottom that found that 70% of all patients who underwent surgery, they were able to do thrombectomy at the time of surgery, proving in fact that thrombus was present in a pre-mortem period. Now, sometimes we don't really see thrombus that well. Sometimes you can see it really well. For example, this shot here shows a block of the thrombus in the right coronary artery. And when you see angiographic evidence of thrombus, it has been associated with a number of bad outcomes. For example, there's an increased risk of no reflow, increase in distal embolization, increased risk that you might have abrupt closure of the vessel. There's decrease in your perfusion of the myocardium, and there's an increased risk of major adverse cardiac events. And so therefore we want to try to find a mechanical or perhaps pharmacological way of treating this thrombus. Now what's wrong with no reflow? If you look at in several studies it's been shown that no reflow or distal embolization is a bad thing. But this one was from our National Cardiovascular Database, and they looked at nearly 300,000 patients. And what they found in study patients is no reflow is present in 2.7% of those patients. And if you look at the outcomes after no reflow, in-hospital mortality is greatly reduced. In fact, in the study population, mortality is cardiogenic shock, as well as heart failure. So we definitely want to try to avoid no reflow when we're doing our primary intervention. How might we do that? Well, distal protection filters have been tried in some of the very early trials. And unfortunately, those trials were uniformly negative. Therefore, there's no data to support the use of distal protection filters in the human eye. There may, however, be some exceptions. On rare occasions, you hear about people who use filters. So, for example, if you have a massive thrombus in the proximal vessel that's quite large, what I've heard what people do is they might put a distal protection device in, and then you can run your thrombectomy device over that filter place distally. Unfortunately, you can't get that far. You can't actually get into the filter because if you remember how that wire is made, there's like a little ring around the top of the filter, and that's what you're running your device over. So sometimes I've heard of people to put the second wire down there and running their aspiration device actually a little bit further down into the filter compared to what you can get by running over the filter itself. And then some people have talked about, actually we did this in our hospital once, we couldn't really get much thrombectomy, so we just used it to catch the clot as a butterfly net and pull it back, and then just try to do a partial retrieval where you only retrieve the proximal part that's on that 9-mile wire, and let the rest of it hang out, and then pull the guiding catheter with the filter all together as one unit at that point. However, I have to remind you, this is really just anecdotal experience, there's really no data. Now, what are the areas that we have some data in? Well, there are some devices that may help protect no reflow. And we're not going to talk about all of those today, but for example, 2-3As, if you give coronary, particularly intralesional exiximab, it's been helpful. I think somebody's going to talk about the optimal stents for STEMI. There are several stents that are the ideal for trying to trap the thrombus. But today we're just going to talk about thrombectomy. And there's two ways to perform thrombectomy. There's mechanical devices such as the angiojet, the exciser, the inspirator, and then there's manual thrombectomy. All the cases that we've seen today is manual thrombectomy. It's very quick, fast, and there probably are advantages and disadvantages to both of these different methods. These are just some examples of the two types, thrombectomy and then manual aspiration. With regard to mechanical thrombectomy, there are several different devices that are commercially available. At our hospital, we really are only using one particular device, and it's called this angiojet. I think there's probably more data on this device compared to any of them. And the way it works is that you have to hook it up to a machine that generates these pulses of saline, that generates these eddy currents and a Venturi effect. And then what happens is it polarizes the thrombus and pulls the thrombus back into this device, and then you can extract it. The big advantage is that you can actually clear a vessel that's larger than the device itself. And that's one of the major limitations to some of those other devices where there's just a passive aspiration. Here's just one example of a patient with huge clots filling the plasma stain graft. And we use this angiojet thrombectomy on it. You can see the before and the left, followed by the after, and it really does allow you to get better thrombectomy compared to one of the manual devices where you just manually aspirate. Unfortunately, the outcomes haven't been proven to be advantageous, and particularly this first trial on here called the STEMI trial. This trial had some bad outcomes in the thrombectomy arm, and you can see the MACE was a little bit higher, the mortality was a little bit higher, but in general, it wasn't necessarily due to the device. I think the control arm in this trial had very, very low outcomes. The mortality rate, I think, was less than 1%. And so if you have a normal mortality rate, it's going to be hard to prove that you're better than your control arm. I think that there was just a fatal chance that that happened. But if you pool the data on all of the mechanical thrombectomy trials, you see there's really no difference in MACE and no difference in mortality. Plus, it takes additional time to set these things up. And so it's evolved in our cath lab, and most cath labs actually, where these devices are used very infrequently. And what we use instead of these ones that are called manual aspiration thrombectomy. And here's just a great example of a perfect case. We don't often see these perfect cases where you have a very large evidence of an angiographic thrombus. we used an aspiration device and pulled out this really stringy thrombotic material, large amount of it. And sometimes you see this, sometimes this thrombus just starts with a lesion and trails downstream quite a bit. But it's rare to be able to find something that good. Now, it's probably hard to see this slide, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. These are small catheters that are made to fit through 6-French sheets. And so what happens in all of them, the internal diameter, the amount that you can actually aspirate, is quite small, and in general it ranges from 1 millimeter to 1.3 millimeter. So if you're in a large coronary artery, you're not going to get much thrombectomy from this device. In addition, these are all designed the same way, and you can see there's a wire port, and then off to the side there's an area. Each one of these you see you're aspirating off to the side. So when I'm in the cath working with these things, they tend to suck up against the wall. You see how they pull negative on that syringe, and then they stop it, and there's creates a whole bunch of suction. What happens is it sucks that catheter right up against the wall. It doesn't care if the thrombus is up the other wall. It doesn't care if the thrombus is in the center of the vessel. This thing's going to suck up against the wall. And so you can miss a lot of thrombus that way just based on that particular design. And there have been some cases where I was able to achieve more thrombectomy by putting it over a wiggle wire, a wire that had a zigzag bend in it. But in general, this really limits the size of it, and the mechanism of action really limits the amount of thrombectomy you can achieve. So the limitations of these devices, 10% of the time they can't even be passed, and 30% of the time they don't retrieve any thrombus at all. They can't remove all the thrombus for sure, and they can result in maybe breaking it up a little bit so you can have more distal embolization. There was a concern, at least initially, for an increased risk of stroke in one of the meta-analysis and also in a horizon sub-analysis. And I'm going to give you a little more data on that later. And so therefore we're going to be waiting for, I want to talk about the two largest studies, the TASTE and the TOTAL trial, which just came out recently. Now we all remember the TAPIS trial, which was a 1,000-patient trial suggesting that there was a survival benefit from thrombectomy. And I want to point this out again just because we always are led down this primrose path where we think something's going to save our lives, but if you don't have enough patients, if you don't have tens of thousands of patients in this trial, in general, we don't know whether this mortality difference is valid. And in this particular trial, what they found is that they suggested that conventional PCI had a much higher mortality than patients who had the thrombo aspiration. But when the Swedish people looked at their registry, they found the opposite was true. They found higher mortality in patients who received thrombo aspiration. And that might have been because they were sicker, and patients with large thrombus might have been the ones that we tended to do thrombectomy in. So they decided to have a trial. They designed this trial called the TASTE trial, in which they randomized 7,500 patients with STEMI going in for primary angioplasty to receive thrombus aspiration versus PCI alone. And they assessed a lot of things. But the bottom line is the primary endpoint was all-cause mortality. Well, right off the bat, I think it was a little bit of a small trial to look at mortality, because remember some of the thrombolytic trials that were 20,000, 17,000 patients, 20,000 patients. So you need those kind of numbers in order to look at mortality. And so it was no big surprise, that, to me at least, that there was no difference in death from any cause with thromboaspiration. There were a few possible benefits. There did appear to be a trend for reduction of reinfarction at 30 days. By the time 1 year came along, those curves were more narrow and it was no longer significant. And in this TASTE subgroup analysis, there did not appear to be any subgroup whatsoever that benefited from routine thrombectomy. So this is routine thrombectomy. It's not just choosing large thrombus. And these are just some numbers down at the bottom. Well, I did want to point out radial approach was used very frequently, 66%. Small guides where they couldn't get as much thrombectomy that way as well. There were a little bit of differences where people who did not have thrombectomy, they were a little more likely to use a 2B3A, less likely to have direct stenting. And thrombectomy did increase your chloral time, your X-ray time. And so again, when you're doing thrombectomy, there are differences in how we're doing these cases. So the conclusions is that from the TASTE trial, there's no reduction in mortality. no significant reduction in other events. And so they questioned the role for routine manual thrombus aspiration, and they suggested perhaps we should use it only in selected patients where there's a bailout for residual large thrombus burden. And so that was a crossover. But there's a lot of issues with the TASTE trial, and many of these I talked about the high crossover rate, the differences, and there was an analysis looking at how many patients really would have been needed to look at a mortality benefit. And they came up with two different calculations. The bottom line, it would have taken, based on the mortality in the trial, it would have taken close to 100,000 patients to show a mortality benefit. So clearly we're not going to be doing that. So the second trial that was just reported recently is called the Total trial. And what they did in this trial, they took patients who were undergoing primary angioplasty in less than 12 hours and did upfront manual thrombectomy versus PCI alone. And the primary